Constructing your life is about much more than just building a bank account. Each week, join real estate entrepreneur and mindset coach Austin Linney as he interviews guests who are constructing their dream lives and impacting the world around them on a daily basis. If you're an entrepreneur or wanting to start a business, or you just want to hear motivating stories of how others have overcome the odds, you are in the right place. And now for your host, Austin Linney.
Guys, welcome back to Construct Your Life. We're calling this episode the Smooth Jazz Hour with Brooks Meadows, the most hypnotizing voice in all of the land.
Hello. I'm going to lay it on. I'm going to lay it on thick.
Thick? Dude,
like,
you know what's funny? True
double
story.
C thick.
True story. I have a weird thing. It's not a weird thing. So I lived in the city, like the ritzy Houston country club. And then when I was 17, my parents got divorced. I moved out to the country, and my accent slides wherever I'm at. So somebody heard me answer the phone to like an old friend from the country. And I was like, and they looked up and they're like, who the fuck was that? And I'm like, it just kind of like, but I say all that to say this. I used to lend money to investors. And when you're going to deal with a land guy that has 1,000 acres, I put on my cowboy boots and I go out there, right? And it's not like I'm trying to like portray I'm both those people, but I'm just trying to make them feel more easy and they don't feel out of place because they don't want to feel like they're kind of like, it's something that people don't pay attention to enough.
Well, there is a word for this. It's called code switching.
Okay.
And typically you're going to hear the context of code switching mostly in Black culture. This is a common phrase that's used in Black culture to switch between maybe their home life and culture and then the person that they present as out into the world. Okay. And you are both of those people, but your ability to switch between the codes is code switching. All right. Now, the first presentation of this may sound a little, as you put it, or about to put it, inauthentic. Mm-hmm. But like you said, you are both of those people. To me, inauthenticity is when I present in a way that I know that I am not. If I'm presenting in a way I know I am not, then I am being inauthentic. But like you, Austin, I also have a sliding scale of accents that come out depending on where I am. I was born in Memphis, and it has a particular sound. The Southern country background has a particular sound, and it's also heavily influenced by Black culture because Memphis is 65% African American. I grew up, my biggest cultural influences growing up in Memphis were 3-6 Mafia, Project Pat, 8 Ball and MJG. I mean, it was like predominantly driven by Black culture.
SPM, baby.
Yeah.
Southeast Texas. Yeah.
Dude. So, and in fact, the Memphis and Houston connection is quite real because there was a whole spell where lots of rappers were going to jail because they actually came from a real authentic, hood experience, as many of them would call it. And in Houston, y'all had a whole series of rappers. Okay. There was DJ Screw, who's notorious for the chopped and screwed sound, which makes you sound like you're on lean. And then you had Pimp C and Bun B, and Pimp C went to jail. And then Bun B, next thing you know, he's rapping with 3-6 Mafia. There's a lot of overlap here. But I do want to talk about code switching because it's such a fun topic. Before we've talked about, I imagine, like my experience in Korea and my ability to code switch in between Korean culture and Western culture. But it brings up a much like deeper point is like, who am I really? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You know, like, am I the series of experiences that I've had, or am I how I'm being in this moment? There's a lot to unpack there, but maybe if you have a direction for the show, we can take it.
No. This is a great conversation. I had a conversation with a guy, by the way, I got to introduce you to. He's got to come. I call him the most interesting man in real estate. He is a trip. He travels a bunch. He's a photographer and a syndicator. And he basically found the love of photography. And what he doesn't tell anybody is because he's a photographer, he gets to go to a lot of conferences and not have to pay for them. So he's like in the rooms he shouldn't be in. But he and I had an hour-long discussion on how much, especially Western culture, is obsessed with labeling and boxing people in. Like, can't you just be in a season of your life where you're in a different time? Like, people are just not okay with that. Hey, man, you got engaged. When are you getting married? Well, we're not. Well, what do you mean? Well, we're not doing that. She doesn't care. I know, but like, what? It's like nobody's allowed to like flow through different versions of themselves. They all have to be what they are. Look, I'll just use it from a context of coaching. I have clients where daddy's got to be the hammer. And I have people where I got to be soft with. And when you truly know yourself, it's very easy to slide. And I'll even say it. I don't want to be the hammer, but sometimes that's what they need. And so I have to step up and be that version of myself. I have all the versions on ready to go.
Honestly, coaching is one of the arenas where I've learned to craft my ability to code switch. What you're describing is a perfect example. The way I like to describe coaching is like parenting. Okay. Mm-hmm. And depending on what I'm coaching, all right, it could depend on my approach, but let's just say that I'm working with someone's story in a personal development setting, and I'm trying to help them through a story that's keeping them stuck. The first question that comes to the coach's mind is, how should I handle this? How could I handle this? I could be the hammer, and I could be the soft, nurturing person that this person may or may not need. So the trick is learning how to distinguish between them. And I have a concept that I think you're going to love because it's uniquely me. What I like to do is I like to take spirituality concepts and bring them to earth. Alan Watts once said that spirituality needs a cold beer and a loud burp. So we're going to add a cold beer and a loud burp to this whole, like, should I be daddy hammer or should I be mommy nurture here? The way that I look at stories that keep people stuck is like a child. When a story is fresh and new, they need nurture and care. When a baby is born, the one thing it needs is nurture and care. Otherwise, it will die without that nurture and care. And so the child, if it's fortunate enough to have an involved mother, begins to create a bond with its mother. It receives the nurture and care that it needs, but then eventually it reaches a point where it needs a new type of nurturing that is a little bit more firm. And I call that the go mow the lawn energy from daddy. Okay. So the trick is learning how to distinguish when I need to act as the nurturer and when I need to act as the hammer. Think about it like this. If you see a 8-month-old breastfeeding, you're probably not going to think anything of it. You're going to think there's a child that's breastfeeding. It needs that love, attention, and care and literal nourishment from its mother. And this is a true story. When I see a 6-year-old British kid on TV breastfeeding while simultaneously reading Harry Potter, it's clear to me that kid is too old for titty. Way too old for titty. Am I right? That kid has no need. If you can read Harry Potter and say to your mother that her breast milk tastes like mangoes, you are too old for titty. So when I'm evaluating someone's story, I have to really get to know, how long has this been present? How long has this been keeping you stuck? Because if the answer was I had a really traumatic breakup less than a year ago, I lost a friend, a family member, I lost a job, it's fresh, man. It needs that nourishment. It needs that love and care. But if I find out you've been stuck in the same story for 6 years and all you've been getting is that nurturing care, I'm going to pop the titty out of your mouth and tell you to go mow the lawn. because you ain't going to get what you want out of this by doing the same thing and remaining in your protective bubble.
Isn't that why having friends that'll tell you the truth to your face very beneficial? Right? Because you look, alcohol, I'll use alcoholism. I can't, and I apologize for anybody that got sober this way. I'm not literally like get sober any way you want. But one of the issues that everybody I've met that is friends with me that have got sober is they don't like the 12 steps because it's just a negative cesspool of, oh yeah, you know, you'll never be like, you know, and it's like, no, dude, okay, you got sober. It's been a year. Like, let's fucking go, you know? And it's like, that's what they needed instead of that, like, oh yeah, Bob, like, you know, we'll get the big break later on. And I feel like there's a lot of like patting on the asses and not pushing. Here's the deal. We have a mastermind that we created and we're a part of. You can't bring your weak shit into our group. We'll fucking, dude, I have to think about what I'm texting you and Chase more than anything in my life. I'm like, soft talk, like, and like, boom. They're like, and so like, I love that because it makes me think on a different level. And, you know, you either join the crowd or you get weeded out real quickly.
Yeah. And the skill, the craft of coaching is knowing when to push and when to pull. Knowing how to lead is not all about dropping the hammer on people. I imagine that, you know, you personally and somebody listening to this has read and investigated all different types of leaders or people they look up to. And for as many different books as you're going to read on leadership, you're going to find as many styles and beliefs about leadership. It's not necessarily about putting it into a one size all method. It's mostly about learning the finer touch of code switching between what's right and what's wrong. And like you said, if the method that I'm applying in the early phases stops working, well, it worked for the phase that I was in. It's time to graduate and find a new phase. Harmonizing the reparenting aspect of your own self is knowing when to give yourself nurture and care to the stories of the things that may have been impactful on you in the past. And then knowing when to hold a boundary. That's the father, the masculine, whatever label we want to use to describe this harmonization. There comes a time where we must learn to set our own boundaries and actually take action behind the things that we want. Because if we're simply nurturing and talking about it, there is no friction or no action. So a lot of this is built into the physiology of being a human. You go through, especially if you're a boy, you go through a phase of just like outright rejection of your parents, your dad or whoever, because you are physiologically needing to assert your own action and beliefs onto the world and have that mix in an environment that's not influenced by either one of your parents. But the challenge is that many of us never go through any sort of official rite of passage that signals to us that I'm transitioning from boyhood to manhood. I'm transitioning for women, to be quite frank. A lot of the rites of passage are built into their physiology. You know, you're becoming a woman when you begin to menstruate. Like that is a physical hardwired thing. And as a health professional, I can just speak like that is biology, right? So it's some of it when you have a child as a woman is another rite of passage. It's built into the physiology. Men needed ritual a lot more than women, not to say that it's not important, but men needed some sort of rite of passage ritual in order to signal to them that I am now worthy of contributing and I'm now able to contribute to my society. And really what we do as coaches in many ways is facilitate these own personal rites of passage to the individual so they can then claim their most passionate, maybe useful, and utility has a lot to do with this. Being able to see your work be utilized by other people is a huge step towards understanding your place in the world.
What was interesting is, as you say that, like I didn't even have my graduation with my parents till 38 years old. Like seriously, it was Angelo Cisco. We're at his place doing his podcast, and he's like, most grown men don't graduate their relationship with their parents. And I was like, what the fuck does that mean? And he goes, you're still the 16-year-old kid with your father. And it wasn't until I graduated the relationship with my father that our relationship started reconnecting. And it's one of those things that, like, in all seriousness, like, okay, vice versa. I'll use my fiance, who's never had any of her parents around, mom or dad, raised by her grandmother. She's actually like, I think my life, to be honest with you, like, I don't wish this on other people, but it's kind of easy because I don't have anybody to answer to. I don't know any different. I own who I am, and I've built myself up through that. And it's really something that I've taken to heart, because she has a lot of truths in there, and saying like, hey, I don't need you. She finally met her dad, but like, okay, great. You're my dad. Thanks for, not being there. And it's like, there's something in that. Right. And so where you say boundaries, and I say, man, the most important boundaries is creating boundaries between who you want to be, or who you're moving to in the future, and who you once were. Like,
and sometimes we backslide too.
Well, 90% of the time.
And I've had my own personal experience of a rite of passage that helped me started graduating my relationship with my father, which was, we went into business together. Mm-hmm. At the time, just before my father and I chose to go into business together, if you had asked anyone in my circle, who are the last two people, father-son combo on earth that should do business together, likely I would have found myself in that category with all of my friends. Mm-hmm. And to an extent, they were right. If the point of going into business is to be successful in business, then it's like, it didn't work out for me. But it salvaged a relationship that was going separate ways. Mm-hmm. And it was in that rite of passage where we were both put in a position where we had to figure it out together and learn how to have conversations and learn how to have a middle ground and learn to meet each other where they were in our communication. Those 2 years, 3 years together were the best thing that ever happened to our relationship. And it was because there was a built-in rite of passage to all of this, that the container itself forced us to work through things that we may have otherwise avoided had we not gone into business together. And I say that was back in between 2017 and 2020. And here I was a couple of months ago having a moment where I recognized my backslide. And I recognized, like, in the mirror, I was seeing a man, handsome as hell, clearly, with a great mustache set here. That was the external, but I could just see in my eyes teenage Brooks being really upset that he wasn't getting the outcome or attention or care that he felt like he deserved, quote unquote, from his father. Yeah. Deserved, entitled to. Entitlement is a large theme of my life, and overcoming that. And so it was another humble reminder that I have made huge gains, and our relationship is as good as it's ever been. Yet I still can pick out those things that still just, it's another opportunity to just bring something that's still stuffed away in my weird emotional closet, because it was coming up. The circumstances were silly. I was about to launch Chop Club. It was like, we're doing our launch party. It's on this day. My little brother called me. He's a freshman at University of Arkansas, and he had bought us tickets to go see Joe Rogan in Dallas forever ago for 420. It was like the 420 Joe Rogan show. And it was the day before my launch. And I was like, you know what? I got this figured out. Me and my little brother made a plan. I'm flying to Dallas. And then after Joe's show, we're driving to Austin because I'm going to go to this studio where I need to do my launch. And then it was 2-3 days before I was scheduled to leave. And I get a text from my dad basically asserting himself into this situation that I'm having with my brother. We've already made plans. We're already good to go. And he's basically like, sorry, you guys can't do this. And my 35-year-old man self was like, the fuck I can't?
Yeah.
What is this? And it was that rejection of authority that was 13 years old all over again. Like, you will not tell me what to do. And it sent me into a 24-hour full on spiral, And so it's so great as a coach to see that in myself, because I can empathize with other people that are gonna fall back into those grooves every now and again, those really deep ruts. And that's okay.
There's only one person that can turn me into mush or get me pissed off in about 5 seconds, is my father. And it's just it happens just like that. And, for context, we're recording this last Thursday. I saw him for the first time in 5 years. And because of my fiance and because of my stepmom, the reason that we are together is because of them two. And true story, this is real. He said this at the lunch table because we had no stress about the situation. It was fucking amazing. Everything was great. Nobody stressed. He said that I watched you beat methamphetamines and alcohol. And I think this was harder than that. I actually had resigned to the fact that this was never going to happen. I had come to grips that you can beat a 20-year alcohol addiction and two fucking stubborn ass mules. And you know what's fucked? This is the most fucked up thing. I haven't even told you. I haven't got a chance to tell you this yet.
Can't wait.
What I do right now, mentor people and help businesses, my dad's been doing for 40 years.
I want to say, of course.
Literally, wait for it. He's also been investing passively in syndication deals in real estate for the last.
Jesus.
We're the same. My fiance looks at me. She goes, "You're the same fucking person."
Dude, even just seeing y'all's partners together, his partner and your partner, I was like, it's not.
Wait for it. My stepmom and my fiance, the same person. Same childhood. Same
Dude,
everything.
I call this the cosmic irony.
Yes.
Cosmic ironies constantly highlighting themselves. And it's all you can do is laugh. Or well, not all you could do. You could get really attached to wanting to be different just for the sake of being different. Or you could just be like, of course, this is how this shit went. And one another wonderful lesson for life is as soon as one accepts that they have only so much control over a situation and chooses to let it go, that it finds itself in perfect harmony with what you were supposed to do.
The moment, especially men, perfect example, client. I love to use examples. Client, real estate market shifting a little bit. He's a top agent. It's his first vacation in 2.5 years. And they're gone for 10 days. I'm running his employees, just I'm here if they need anything. And he was like, "Hey man," 2 days before the thing, he texted me really early. He's like, "Hey dude, I don't think I could, I need to stay focused on my business. We got some deals that are closing." And I was like, "Okay, so here's your options. So tell me what sounds better to you. Let's grip it as tight as we possibly can. And the $10,000 that you spent on your vacation, let's not enjoy any of it, or you can surrender." And he was like, "Fuck you, thanks, bye." And yes. I was like, and it's really that simple. The money that you already spent, I know how much those plane tickets were.
Yeah.
And you got your kids with you and your wife, and there's a time to reflect on this crazy last 2 years and really disconnect and replan the next year, and micromanage your team. So I got on the call right before he left with his team. I said, How you doing? Man, I'm ready. So if we didn't talk to said boss for 2 weeks and you had to step up as an employee and an operations manager, do you think that would make you better or less better? Well, it would make me great. I would expand. It would make me trust myself more. Okay, I'm waiting. I told my client, I'm waiting for you to see fault in that. No, you're right, 100%. And I'm like, by stepping back and letting your team, there's so many different layers of why it's amazing. Because they get to feel, I figured this out because I was the worst. I was not a great boss in the beginning. I asked my team to fail every day. I need them to fail every day. I said, please fail today. Do something that's not exciting. I read a Sam Zell book. He's a billionaire real estate investor. He has 15 companies plus. What he allows his CEOs to do, because his systems and values are so dialed in, every 2 years, he allows his CEOs to switch companies that they're running. because he wants them to be challenged always, and their systems and the values of the vision of the company is the same. But if they get bored, he wants them to switch.
Man, there is a universal truth here that I've heard from every great of all. Anybody that's great on a small scale or great on a great scale, on a massive scale, scales that still to this day, I can't even imagine having this kind of impact. All of them agree on one thing. As soon as you stop operating at the edge of what you know and have just resolved to no longer find your edge, that's a wrap. That's it. Because greatness is a subjective thing. I want to make that clear. What I think to be great and what Austin thinks to be great could be very different, but greatness happens when we are operating at the edge of certainty. What happens is that we are oftentimes trained out of seeking uncertainty. Because if you want to get the right job or get into the right college or you're supposed to get the answers right. Rightness is given a particular value over wrongness. And we are taught to pursue being right at the cost of learning. We are taught to be right, taught to seek getting the answer right above learning. I got so many answers right when I was in school. Now ask me, what did I learn in school? And I'll tell you, I learned how to convince people I was right. That is not the same thing as learning to get to the best answer for any given circumstances. Those are very different things. So we're taught to value getting the answer correct. And we, by default, are taught to devalue getting the answer wrong or failing.
It's really funny that you say it. So I made a promise to myself. I have a theme for the year, but I made a promise to myself in my business. I was going to test my edges. I was going to coach as many people as I could coach. I was going to start as many, and I was going to see where the throttle fell off. And guess what? We ain't found it yet.
Haven't found it yet, baby. Let's keep going, dude.
And so signed a big client this week. Signed like a huge client that we needed. Signed 3 more clients. Started 3 businesses. Started another one last night. Here's the deal. I haven't even told you this stat. We haven't told the group yet. You ready for this? This blows me away. Even my team can't stand it. I met Conrad on March 18th. 94 days, 12 businesses created. You know why? But let me break it down for you. Let me break it down for you. Now, Chase knew when he made that connection. Well, why is that case? Well, Conrad already has 20 years in business. I already have 20 years in business. We're comfortable with who we are. We're both coaches. We've done the work. So then when he wrote a vision statement down for 10 years, and my vision statement, literally you could have took my name out and put it in. Where's this person been all my life? Bam. And what we keep hearing from our advisors, board of advisors, is, man, we love your speed. If we give you advice, you turn it into right away. And I say all that to say that how much are you working or moving in your life, whether personal, business, or health, just say in general, where you think you've met your edges and you're not even close yet?
No doubt. I just finished reading a book called The Art of Nonconformity, written by a guy named Chris Guillebeau. And towards the end of the book, he starts talking about leaving a legacy. And his push in the book is that, the general assumption about leaving a legacy is that you get to the end of your life or the end of a term and you start looking back and trying to decide in hindsight what your legacy was. His argument is that you can start doing this. You could and should start building your legacy right now. Okay. And the only way you can do that is seeking out what is really possible for you. And he breaks down, if you're going to work on some legacy project, you're gonna have three different types of work that make their way into your sphere: bad work, good work, and great work. Now, the most obvious one is that I need to get rid of the bad work right out of the gate. I need to eliminate as much bad work from my work desk as I possibly can. But the challenge is learning how to minimize good work, because we can get overwhelmed by doing a bunch of good work. And good work's good, but it's not great. And so I've done a lot of good work in my life. I've done a lot of good work. I haven't done a lot of great work. And the reason is because I have assumed responsibility of the good work. But recently, I received an invitation by you to delegate and elevate my work. It's time for me to do my great work. It's time for me to start building my legacy. And a legacy isn't only a company or a sum of money or assets. A legacy is something that is tangible, that will be passed along into the future generations long after you're dead. You could write a book. That's one way to leave a legacy. You could create a movie. Somebody could make one movie and it's just like they're living, breathing testimony of what they think life is. And like, that's their legacy. But the point is, if I wait until the end to look back, there's a high probability I'm going to look back and wish I had done and pursued other things. And because I'll likely realize that I didn't really find my edge. I hit my comfort edge, but that's not your real edge. That the comfort edge is just that signal or feedback that you get from your body that you're about to engage in something that is at your edge, but that doesn't mean that you found it. It just means that you found the constraints, the false boundaries around what you're willing to take on as a risk. One of my favorite quotes from Elon Musk is, entrepreneurship is like chewing glass and staring into the abyss. You want to talk about being at the edge of what you know? Like, that's what it looks like. Sometimes it's like chewing glass and staring into the abyss. And the great ones will choose to pursue that anyway. The good ones will acknowledge that it's there, but may find a reason to not pursue it. And the bad ones just don't even want to look at it at all. And so I'm on a personal journey this year of building my legacy through the mediums that I'm capable of doing that. And that's through the spoken word, storytelling, podcasting, and also supporting that with writing and coaching.
Yeah. Omar, my brother from another mother, has an amazing story he heard about entrepreneurship. He goes, imagine entrepreneurship is like you sit down at this beautiful, long, king's dinner table, and he's like, they come over and they bring you a bowl and it's a pile of dog shit, and he says, so you eat that entire pile of dog shit, and he's like, then they just shove another bowl in your mouth, and then you eat that entire bowl, and then they just shove another bowl entire in your mouth. But here's my theory on that. At least it's my dog shit. Like, at least I get to make the decision what shit I eat. And so I'm totally comfortable with that, right? And so what's exciting to me is what you and Dave have created, right? And kind of tell me the genesis to the Chop Club and why you thought it was time to start something like that.
Sure. The first was tactical. It was a business decision, looking at a marketplace that is saturated and increasingly so, which is coaching. And I'd say health coaching is wellness coaching as a subcategory. And it was just deciding who we wanted to help. And we realized that there was an archetype of a man on his own hero's journey. And we were appealing to that same man at different phases of his life. And the first phase of that is what we have called the riser phase. You're early in your career and you're rising towards this person that you want to be. Money's a little tighter. You are, likely building a career and you're still going to be making decisions at the margin of your dollar. And you're likely comparing that to other things like gym memberships. CrossFit gym is a good example. And then there's another man who's in the mastery phase of his life. This man has started building a business or a career that is now booming, and he's starting to reach the crest of that as the master. And the master's looking around and realizing that his health is not matching the mastery level that he's achieved in his business. And he needs, because he prioritizes family and work as 1A and 1B, he needs a solution that does not interfere with 1A or 1B. And so we realize that the master needs to learn how to get healthy while they work. And this is the what did you do that was different from other people? We realized everybody was trying to sell these guys on an idea of doing more by making more time, getting up earlier, staying up later, fitting this into your schedule, because, but that just becomes it's at odds with their priorities. Their priorities, 1A, 1B, family and business. As soon as you try to put their health above those priorities, you've lost their business, because they're never going to prioritize their health, their own personal health, above 1A and 1B. It might be 2, right? But it's never going to make it into 1. And that's okay. That's not the phase of life that they're in. So we're going to teach you how to get healthy while you work. We're going to teach you to get healthy while you spend time with your family. They're not at odds. But then the third one is the man that's in the legacy phase. This guy has had a few exits. Hey, he could be 30 and have had a few exits. He might be 60 and have had a few exits. But now they've had the few exits. They've been to the moon, and they've looked back at the earth from the moon, and then they come back down to earth, and they got their ticket tape parade, and they got to meet the president. And now they're sitting there going, now what? What am I actually going to leave to people now? And that's where we come in, because what Dave and I both do is the way that we've harmonized is he's a story worker and I'm a storyteller. Dave is going to be able to help the legacy man get clear on the vision for the legacy that they want to leave, get very clear on who the beneficiaries of that legacy are going to be. And it doesn't always have to be your children. It could be anybody out in the world that you deem that you want to support. Those are your beneficiaries. And then it becomes a tactical, okay, like, here's my vision for the legacy I want to leave. Here are the people that I want to benefit. Now I have to decide a medium. How am I going to leave a legacy? Through what medium am I going to do this? And then it becomes, all right, now we get to start crafting your story. And this is the part where it really becomes the deep work that these guys didn't know that at first it was possible or accessible to them. They were likely too distracted to allow themselves to go deep enough into their experience to start to extract this stuff. But I want you to imagine if I was going to write a book, if Austin was going to write a book and you're interested in reading what Austin has to say, and you open the book and it's simply a timeline of events that happened in Austin's life, and it looks a lot like a resume. When I was this age, I accomplished this. When I was this age, I accomplished this. And when I was this age, I accomplished this. The end. Well, it wouldn't take me long to throw that fucking book away, because there's no tension. There's no craft. There's no story. There's no lesson. It's just a series of things that you've done. And that's what most people's life looks like. They have convinced themselves that their life is a piece of paper with bullet points on it that says, I've done this, and that's my value. That's not your value. That's just stuff that you did. That's not your legacy. That's just stuff that you did. Legacy is something that you do on purpose. And so what we do is we help them really get clear on who, what, and how. And then we teach them how to just be fucking magnetic in telling their story. Just to be able to like walk into any room and somebody asks you to teach a lesson, and you know exactly what your legacy is. You know exactly how to pull them into being interested in that story. And you know how to leave the lesson in a way that's impactful and gets them to take action. And one of the legacies that I've personally taken on is I started one that will be one of several stories that I tell in a theatrical performance-based medium in the form of a one-man show where I go up and I do the entertaining thing, but I leave you through a story that leaves you with a lesson. And for me, the first story is called The King Says Yes. And the whole thing is about the start of the journey, learning how to say yes to the things that really light you up about life, and what to expect when you start to take those early steps towards living that life that you want. And so CHOP, to close the loop on all of this and how this got started, is that it started simply, which was we recognized that there was a need in the marketplace that was not being filled. So we decided we can do this. We will create this. And we invited men that fit that profile into our life. And the ones that said yes have been off to the races. And what we intend to do in the next phase of this is we are going to find new ways to reach that man and to invite them into our community, provide a ton of value in the form of content, writing, emails. I want you to get email value, even if you never sign up to join Chop Club. If you join our newsletter, you're going to get information that is going to help you learn to get healthy while you work. If you don't want that, no problem. But that's how I'm contributing. That's how Dave is contributing. We are teaching men to master the last missing link in the life that they want to live and to increase and add some longevity to your legacy.
I love it. I mean, at the end of the day, I think one of the arts that doesn't get enough credit is articulating the story proper way, because you're doing that in business, you're doing that in your personal life, you're doing it in general. And I think, I always loved, I always study like Les Brown, Jim Rohn. I'm always looking at their kind of thing, taking a little bit from them. I love the way that Jim Rohn like paused and he kind of had his own cadence and stuff. And like that stuff to me is so interesting. I love watching Mark England work and you, and like, there is something to said, like, my favorite thing to do, I'll never do it because it's a lot of work, but I love to set a playlist together for like an event or like something. Cause like, you have to know like emotionally where to take them. Right. And it's the same thing in the story. Like you can't come out of the gate with like hot stepper, you got to like work them in for like 30 minutes and then like their ears got to get used to it. And then you kind of take it up a notch. And that's the same way when you're telling a story or a client, and like there is something to be said to being able to articulate your business vision. Like when I tell the vision of what we're creating, like people, like they get it like right away and they're like, oh, I'm in. Right. And then I meet guys who are very analytical and they have this like great product, but they can't sell it for shit. And I'm like, yeah, you don't have anything. And so, it's this thing I feel like kind of got lost for many years. And I feel like, through your work and what you're doing, like, I think it's kind of coming around again. As far as I'm concerned, I think it's super important because you have to cut through the noise.
No doubt. No matter what industry you're in, no matter what sector you're in, there is a growing market and a growing supply of coaches or people that are leading in that space. And the reason it feels that way is that now we are inundated with social media. We're inundated with content, but it's easy to find, and this is the beauty of the current climate that we live in. It's easy to find the people that are doing what you want to do better than you and to go seek out their support. And that is, to me, this is what's exciting, is that people on a growing scale, people are realizing that my individual voice matters. It is easy to believe that there is someone better suited for what you are about to do than you, and just to simply decide not to do it. However, because our voice is a vibration that starts in our throat, and our eardrums are small little vibratory sensors that catch the vibration, sends it into a nerve signal into my brain that my brain interprets as a sound, but really it is a physical vibration that is happening. Because of this, the vibration of my voice and message may hit you differently than someone else's same message with different voice, which is why it often takes being told by multiple people a piece of advice before it finally lands. It's because the vibration of that person's energy and their literal voice is going to register into your sensory differently. And that is what creates that change, is the feeling of it. So I realize that if I can spread any message, it's that you as an individual have the power to impact your world by choosing to teach what you know. Because if I share what I know, even if it's the same thing that other people are sharing and knowing, what will be different is that this time it will come from my voice and from my vibration, and that I am just as capable and likely to increase the frequency or vibration of the world by sharing my own personal experience. I learned that from a man named Chris Moore. Chris Moore was affectionately known as the Barbell Buddha. He co-founded what ended up becoming the #1 fitness podcast in the world on iTunes called Barbell Shrugged. I'm personal friends with many of the guys that started that podcast now, but at the time I was a fan. And if anybody listening out here is wondering how and what it looks like to go from maybe working a full-time job, getting paid a nice salary, but wanting to find your own voice and do it in a courageous and entertaining way, I invite anyone to look up Barbell Buddha on any of the podcast app that you find, Barbell Buddha. Listen to it from front to back and remember that this guy dies in the end, right? And the lesson that you'll learn is not only is it impactful, it's also vital that you do this, because you never know when you're going to punch out. Chris died suddenly at the age of 36. And when you go back and listen to it, you hear him recognize his own mortality. And he chose to take action and to share his voice, even if only one person listened. But the beautiful thing about him is that tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people have now heard his message. And that is his legacy that he had to give to the world. He's left 4 books and a podcast. And now the Barbell Shrugged is in, you can go and buy a Barbell Shrugged product at Walmart. These dudes started out building a podcast in their freaking garage, living in the crawl space of their gym, and they just showed up and did the work every day under the belief that if I share what I know, I personally, not one day, someday, right now, I'm changing the world. So I invite anybody who's listening to this to go do that.
Naval, the only way to truly escape competition is to be authentically you. It's the truth. So if people want to find out about the Chop Club, they want to follow about what you're doing, how would they do that?
If you want to get healthy while you work, www.shopclubformen.com, Shop Club for Men on Instagram. But if you go to the website, scroll to the bottom of the page, sign up for the newsletter. That's the best way to stay in touch. It's the best way to receive all the content and information that we have to share. I invite you to follow me on Instagram, Brooks Meadows. Follow my boy, Dave Robinson.coach. He is my business partner. He is the host of the Get and Lifted podcast, and he himself is just putting out incredible knowledge and wisdom through his Instagram. He's also a bit of an instigator, which I love. It's there to kind of shake you up, get you thinking differently. If you want to get healthy while you work, or if you are feeling stuck and you want to learn how to tell your story from a place that is confident and magnetic and invites people in, reach out to us and we can help you there.
I love it. Guys, if you got some value from this episode, send it to a friend and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to Construct Your Life with Austin Linney. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to rate, review, subscribe, and pay it forward by sharing with a friend. Most importantly, take this opportunity to start constructing your life by taking immediate action on what you learned. For show notes, resources, and more information on one-on-one coaching with Austin, visit constructyourlifepodcast.com.